Alright, so the story for Texas Chainsaw 3D is, to be honest, kind of interesting because when I went into this film, I just thought it was going to be a straight up Texas Chainsaw movie. You have the Sawyer house, you have, Leatherface, people come, people get killed, people get skinned, Leatherface puts some faces on the face of his, typical stuff. But really what I got was mostly that, but in the beginning it actually shows that this is actually a real sequel to the first movie. The first movie that came out in 1974. This is the legitimate, real sequel to that because it takes place right after the end of that movie. And what was kind of cool is actually it shows scenes of the first movie, classic scenes in 3D, which I thought was kind of cool. Sorry, I thought it was cool. And they show what happens after the end of that. Now, I don't really want to spoil it. I want people to kind of be surprised what happens. But let's just say it doesn't end well for the Sawyer family. And bad things happen, and now it's a long time later, much later, and now we're following some woman. I can't remember her character's name and the actress's name. I don't really care. To be honest, I don't have a computer here, and I didn't care to search up because I'll tell you why. So anyway, it follows some woman, and she just got a letter saying that she inherited a house. And she's like, whoa, why am I inheriting a house? Because her grandma died. And she's like, wait, I have a grandma? I thought my grandma died. Well, you soon find out that she might be connected to the Sawyer family in, very weird ways. I don't want to spoil it. Just, in a way. I don't want to spoil it. Again, this is very hard to not spoil. Even though the trailer made it look very simple, it's kind of hard to not spoil it without, of course, spoiling it. That makes sense. So anyway, she goes to this house with a bunch of her friends, her boyfriend, a couple other people, and a hitchhiker. They go there, and it's a huge house, and of course, in the basement, who's there? Leatherface. Ooh. And of course, people get killed. Later on, the movie just switches gears from a typical slasher movie into something completely different. And to be honest, I thought the story was refreshing in a way because I thought, when I watched the trailer, I was like, you know what? It's probably going to be a typical Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. I'm sorry, Texas Chainsaw movie. Because, of course, the massacre part's not in there. So, I thought it was going to be a typical movie. But you know what? I got something a little different. Not saying that different stuff was great. It really wasn't. But you know what? It was kind of, it surprised me. Even though in the beginning I saw where it was going to go, I didn't see where it was going to go before I came into the movie, which I can't say for most horror movies. So, I'll give Texas Chainsaw that. The story is not good. The characters are not fleshed out at all. I don't care about any of them. But it surprised me in parts here and there. So let's talk about the acting of Texas Chainsaw 3D, which I'm just going to get through it real quick. The original movies, and even the remake, and even the beginning, that crappy movie that came out a few years ago, the prequel, whatever, it was called The Beginning, right? I don't know. But even that had some decent acting because you had the Sawyer family, and in this film you don't have them for long. And even when you have the Sawyer family, the crazy nut jobs, they don't seem like they're that crazy, and they're just not that great of actors. Besides, of course, Bill Moseley, who's in it, who I love, but he's barely in it. And even him, he's just like staring, saying some kooky things. But for the most part, he's just there. The Sawyer family's not that crazy. And in the remake and the beginning, whatever the hell it's called, you had those insane people. You had the sheriff who was just insane. I loved that character and all the other people. They were just insane to look at and great actors doing what they had to do to make it look insane, and you don't have that in this film. And of course, the rest of the cast is just not very good at all. Besides maybe some of the townsfolk in the film, that the supporting cast for the townsfolk, they're actually pretty good in here. The thing is that they're overacting and they're just having fun with it, sure. But, I could say that. But, of course, the main cast, the main girl, she is incredibly hot, but she is not that good of an actress. You have Trey Songz in this film, who I didn't even know that was a rapper. Is that a rapper or R&B singer? I'm not sure. I hope so, because if he's not either one and he's just a regular guy, Trey Songz, you slapped the mother that named him. Because at least Songs with an S, not a Z. Come on. And he's okay in the film, to be honest. He's actually not that bad, but he's not in it for very long, let's just say that. And the rest of the cast doesn't do a great job either. They're just, typical people. One of the girls is a slutty one. One's kind of the nerdy one. One's the douchebag guy. And for the most part, they're all disposable. They are. And yeah, the acting is just not great here. And I mean, it's not horrible, but it's not great, definitely. So yeah, there you go. There's the acting. My voice is actually starting to go away here. Whew. So let's end this review off with, of course, the violence. Is it scary? Is it, horrific? Is it bloody? Let's talk about it. Now, Texas Chainsaw 3D, I will give this movie this. It is a very violent, very gory looking movie, even though it is very stupid and very inconsistent at times with its blood, because there'll be times where, oh, he's mashing some dude's head in with a hammer, and you get a quick glimpse of it, and then later on in the film, someone gets chopped up into bits, and you get to stay on that and watch this dude just get mauled to death by this friggin' meat grinder, and it's a little inconsistent with that, but for the most part, it's actually very violent, very cool. They do use CG a little bit too much at times, mostly for the 3D effect, like, oh, here's a gut, ooh, oh, here's this, ooh, and it's a little bit too much at times, but I think the gore does work here. It's actually kind of fun to watch some of these characters get killed, and there is times where it gets bloody. There's a whole scene where you see like 3 bodies just hanging up, meat hooks everywhere. Of course, if you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know what I'm talking about. And there's just like piles of dead people, faces being ripped off, freaking heads in baskets and stuff. It's pretty gross, but it's awesome. And like I said before, that whole meat grinder part, so awesome. That was actually a really cool one. Even though most of it was CG, I'll admit that one was actually pretty cool. Now, yeah, it was very violent. It had its fair amount of jump scares and some tension too, which I kind of liked. There's a whole part where a cop goes in with a cell phone, which is stupid. He's like recording stuff while going into this pretty much a haunted house, and it builds up the tension. Even though you don't really care for this character, so I don't know why you even care. The only reason why it's tense is because, oh, when's that jump scare coming? And the way the jump scare comes, it's a little obvious, but I don't know. Jump scares work sometimes, and I think they worked here. But still, the movie is very silly, very stupid. It's violent as all hell, but really, I just don't like where this series is going at all. Even the beginning, even though that was a horrible movie, it still had that family, and it doesn't have it here, sadly. And even though it did surprise me where it went, I still didn't really care for it. The story was okay, but the acting was not that great. The violence was cool. The 3D effects worked at times, but even with that, it just becomes a forgettable horror film. Nothing amazing, kind of entertaining, but, kind of a middle-of-the-road movie. So, you know what? I'm just going to give it a middle-of-the-road score. I'm going to give it a 20 out of 40. So, there you go. Sorry that my voice is kind of screwing up here, but I've had a really bad sore throat for the last couple of days. And I'm sorry if this review's a little long, but, yeah. Anyway, thank you, and goodbye.